All right. Thanks, Lars. Thank you, everybody, for joining again today. So this time we're just gonna, go back in and kind of build up on some of the stuff that we had talked about last week. So for this one, I want to talk about creating user properties because that was one that was kind of popular to ask about last week. So we're gonna look at creating user properties. We're gonna get into some of the actual JavaScript language and learn about how to do conditional statements, so your if else, and if else if type statements. We're going to look at the dump file that you can create, and in my opinion, and this is just because this is kind of how I learned it, the dump file or the post processor that dumps all the information out, which I call the dump file, is like one of the key to knowing how to use and pull information from your actual program. And then if time allows, we'll kind of look at setting up the A, B, and C axes variables, and then also kind of how we can use if statements to be able to toggle whether I'm using a 4th axis post or just 3 axis post. So anyways, so that's just kind of some of the stuff we're going to go into. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, user properties. So there's 3 ways in the post processor that we can define a user property. And then later on, if we can get into it, there's technically a 4th way, but you have to use a secondary form called the interactive form. But we might get into that later. Anyway, so 3 ways that we can do it in the post processor as it is true-false statement, define an integer, or a string value. Now, if you ever create a property and maybe you want it at the top of the list, but you put it at the end, it automatically filters it for alphabetically whenever you go to do the post process inside of HSM or HSM Works Fusion. So it kind of puts it in the list wherever it fits alphabetically. Quick tip, if you ever want to put one at the top of the list, start the property off with a capital letter. It automatically goes to the top of the whole list. Then again, once you do that, if you have capital letters on multiples, it still does them alphabetically, but they're above all the others. Anyway, so let's kind of look at some of this, how we can do this. Oops.
Hey, Matt, we don't see your slides moving. Do you?
You see it now?
Now we see it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so, well, oops. So let's go into Notepad real quick. All right. So in here, we have the properties section up towards the top of the program. So what I want to do is, you can kind of see already. So here I've got sequence number start, and I'm defining a variable, or an integer, show sequence numbers, true, false. So any property or value, true, false, string that you enter in here is what the post processor will automatically default to whenever you're in HSM. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by creating a property called show user, and I'm going to make it true. Now the one thing you got to remember on these, last time I talked about syntax and everything, the last property on the list, typically what you'll see is, if I didn't have this one in here, there would not be a comma on the end of this one. So if I go and create this show user true, even though I put a comma here, the program will fail at this point because there's no end to that variable, basically is what it's doing. So you always got to put a comma on the end of it so it doesn't fail you. Okay, so that's one, and then I'm going to say user, and here I'm just going to enter a string. So whenever you're doing a string, you have to make sure that you contain it in quotations, or else it won't be able to process it. And let's do date. that'd be another string. But, actually, user ID. Maybe he's got like an ID that he actually uses. So we'll just say 1, 2, 3, 4 for that one. So here we're going to do show user true false. So as we get into the webinar, we're going to look at pulling that information and actually posting it in our code and how we do that. And then I've got the user, and then maybe his ID. So something that they track his performance by or something like that. Whatever it could be. Okay, so there's the 3 examples of those. Okay, so with that, that's kind of straightforward on the user properties, but I mean they're kind of pretty basic as it is. But now we're going to look at how we can actually use those properties to drive posted information. Okay, so what I want to begin with is looking at actual if statements through the JavaScript language. So to begin, obviously you got to start with if, and then in your parentheses is the condition of what you're trying to evaluate. So the condition could be a mathematical evaluation, a true-false statement, or in our case it could be checking for a parameter, whether it's there or not. If a parameter isn't in the toolpath, then it won't process that code, and we would do a different kind of output for it. So in the conditions, whenever you're creating those, you have your standard, if you're doing mathematical, you do greater than, less than, or greater than, equal to kind of things. But with some of the operators, it's kind of interesting in JavaScript. You can't just say, x equals 10. You have to put x equals 10 for it to actually process it as like a statement. So then you have equals is equal to, an exclamation mark and an equal is not equal to. If you want to evaluate multiple parameters, so it could be, and I'll show you an example of it in a little bit. Say I want to check for 2 parameters that are in a toolpath, and if they're there, I wanted to process the information a certain way. I would put 2 ampersand signs. Maybe I want to look for 1 parameter. If it doesn't have this one, or it might have this one, I can do 2 pipe symbols. And then, if you just want to say it's not true, basically, you put an exclamation mark in front of it. And we'll look at examples of these actually right now. So let's do this. All right, so I'm going to do Control F is first. All right, so an example of an evaluation saying parameter does not equal a parameter, or not equal to. Here you've got tool number does not equal get previous section get tool number. So it's basically saying this current section that I'm on, if the tool number does not equal the previous section that I just went through, then it's going to post the new tool number. So that's an example of that one. Let me go down here where it's kind of easier to look through. Okay, so this is one we're going to look at here in a little bit as well. But in here we have if has parameter operation dash comment. So here we're actually doing a parameter check to say if this toolpath has operation dash comment, so if I've actually got a written comment in it, then post it out as a comment, the right comment line. Okay, but then if it doesn't have anything, so it's not even going to worry about it. It's just going to bypass that if statement. And then let's see. So here's another good example of just having the exclamation mark. So in here I had said that the exclamation mark is not. So I guess the way I always think about it is whenever I'm reading these, if I see the exclamation mark, I'll say, you know, is not first section. I mean, so I guess I kind of mix the letters up, but I'll say is, since that's there, not first section. So that's kind of, I guess, my kind of screwball way of looking at it, but that's just kind of how I put that together. So I always remember that that is a false statement, basically, is what it's saying. And then, let's see, what was another one? Oh. I want to do equals equals so I can show you that one. Okay, so here's one in the work offsets. This is good examples. So if my work offset, here's the equals equals, so my work offset equals 0, then it gives this warning, and then I define it as 1. Okay, so then if work offset is greater than 0 is my overall if statement, then I've got multiples underneath. So then if it is greater than 26, I do this information. If the work offset does not equal current work offset, and then I process through all that. So it's just, you kind of gradually work through the different variations of how things can be done. So let's do this. I want to go ahead and start looking at how we use the user properties. Okay, so in the onOpen section, I'm going to go down to where I have %sign. Okay, so there's the opening of my program. And then here's where it actually posts out the program number and if it has a comment or anything. So right under that is where I'm going to start. And I'm going to start with doing user properties. So if properties dot show user. Now, whenever you see these little boxes pop underneath as you're typing, if the one you want is selected, you can always hit tab and it automatically populates it in there. Then I'm going to say true. Then I want to do a write comment, because these are going to be comment lines for the user information. Properties dot user. And then properties dot user ID. And then make sure we have a closing bracket, or not closing bracket, a semicolon to tell it that that's the end of my statement. And then that's a closing bracket for the if statement. So if I leave it that way, if it becomes false, then it's just going to skip over the statement and not do anything. So let's just go ahead and save this. And I want to come in here. Open a different one. Okay, so I'm just going to check this real quick. So I got my webinar post. Now you can see show user, very top. So I can pull yes, no, user, my string, and then my user ID. Let's go ahead and post this and see what comes up. Okay, so here I got programmer, and then, oh, you know what? Should have a plus sign, plus. So these are kind of the things that you have to look through to, yeah, okay, to, you know, just check things. So let's see if I go back and repost. Hopefully this works this time. and there it is. So, there's always, whenever you're doing posts, it's always like a trial and error type deal, and you think you can do it one way, and then you actually have to go about another one. So whenever you're doing like strings or even like a string and integer type thing together, the optimal way to do it is, and this is basically, I'm saying pull the user properties plus put a space between it, and then add the properties.userid to it as well, so that I get one continuous line. Okay. Okay, so that's an example of just the basic if statement. So then an if else, there again, you're doing your if, your condition, and then whatever code you're wanting it to post out. If you add the else, then you're saying else if it doesn't equal whatever the condition is, or if the condition doesn't match up, then post out this code in place of it. So let's do this. So if I do else here, again, you have to have the bracket or the squiggly brackets. I call them squiggly brackets. Anyways, else I can do. Let's just do write comment. Unknown user, just for the fun of it. So then if I come in here, let's just check it. I'm going to check this. No. So then now you get the actual unknown user in there instead of the information that we had before. Okay. And then, just building on that, this else if statement is seen, whenever we're looking at the work offsets. This is kind of just whenever there's multiple ways, so like if you're having 20 plus work offsets, I know from 1 to 9 I can do a specific set of numbers, and then from 10 on I have to go to another set of numbers, and then there may be another one, so there's just being able to process mathematical equations like this or whatever, as your condition. Else if I can actually put another condition in here, and that's what it should be. So you would have else if, another condition, and then your else would just be what it would be if those other two weren't met. Okay. Okay, so some other ways we can look at it using the code is, in the tool descriptions or whenever you're doing actual tool calls, some users I've seen have had the description of the tool added as a comment line on the same line as your tool change. So there's processes you can do for that. Same with doing like the spindle speed and the spindle on output. For any kind of milling operations, like they want it in a certain place. If it's a drilling operation, they want it same place, but maybe your S and M value is switched, and then whenever it's tapping, they want it in a completely different location. So there's ways that you can do that, and I'm actually going to go through some of that. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can add tool description to the tool change line. Here. All right. So I know, go on section, scroll down here a little bit. All right, so here I've got my insert tool call. And then if I come down just a little bit farther, I've got my right tool block from my actual tool line. Okay, so if you look right below this, there's an if statement for the tool.comment. And so what this is, it'll post out my tool call line, and then right below it, it'll post out a comment line showing my tool comment. Okay, so let's say we didn't want this in here. We actually wanted it up here in this line. Okay, so first what I want to do is, this being me, I don't remove information a lot of the time, you know, even if it might be obsolete at this point, but I always still just do a block comment on this kind of information, just because you never know, they may come back and say, you know what, we don't actually want that description on there, just go ahead and put it back below the line. Well, all I have to do is do a couple clicks rather than typing out the whole thing again. So do that, and then with doing the comment, so whenever we write a comment, you can always see there's a write comment, but if I'm writing a comment inside of a tool block or a write tool block call, we have to kind of process it a different way. Okay, so again here we're going to put comment. Let's see. So we put comma there, and then what I'm going to do is, in quotations, I'm going to put my opening parenthesis that would define the comment, plus, here I'm going to call it tool description rather than tool comment, just because that's what the end user is wanting. So I'll do that, plus parentheses, closing parenthesis inside the quotations. So now what this will do is it'll post out the tool description right after my M6. Now, this is what it'll do all the time. So if I don't have a tool description, it'll still post these parentheses out in it anyways. So let's say we want to do an if statement for that tool description. So I'm just going to do if tool.description. So basically I'm saying if there's a tool.description, then I want it to post out this line of code. Okay, enter there. Else, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, copy it down, and then just remove this stuff that I had added, so it's back to the way it was. So now if there is a tool description, it's going to post it out this way. If there's not, I'm going to get this line. Okay. So that's kind of an easy way of going about doing that. Now, let's say I come in here and I've got my right block, and I want to go in and actually change the way I've got my spindle speed and my M call from my clockwise rotation or the spindle rotation, either how it's changed or how it's posted, like orientation, or even where it's posted. Okay, so for this one, we're going to actually take a look at something real quick. So in here, I want you to see a few things. Let me change this real quick. Change this down to right tapping. Alright, I'm going to pick these three. We're going to do a post process real quick. And I'm going to go to my dump.cps. Alright, so So in the dump file, there's lots of different information in there. So one thing I want you to see is parameters. You have, I guess, what I define as local parameters and global parameters. So your local parameters are going to be specific to like on sections, and then your global parameters are the parameters that you would see at the very top of the dump file that aren't posted with every toolpath or every section. And then the way we actually call these are in the if statement as well. Say if it has the parameter, then you would process and you would create a variable, which we'll do here in a minute, that actually gets that parameter value and assigns it to a variable that you define. And we'll, like I said, we'll look at this one. And then the same process will go for global parameters. And like I said, these can be used to define how your code is actually output. Okay. So then some other information that you'll see once you get past the parameters for the on section, you'll see current section, which would define like your work offset, tool orientation, spindle, and information like that. And then after that, you have all your tool information, so your coolant, your number, diameter, description, comment, everything that defines that tool you see under the current section. And then once you get past that, it's the actual moves for the toolpath. So your XYZs and all that stuff, where you get into the on rapids, on linears, and so forth. Okay. So in looking at that, I want to go in here and oops, wrong one. All right, in here. So basically, the way I see it, let's do Control F again. I'm going to go on section. Okay, so here's my on section, and then the current section stuff. So now this is all for the first toolpath. If I go back to this, there's my on section end. So where you see this notes, this is like the beginning of local parameters, or what I'm calling local parameters. It may actually be, evaluated as something else, but so then if I go back to my original one, here's the notes. Okay, so from line 108 up, all that I would consider to be the global parameters, are like inventor parameters that you can call. If you notice, like all my dimensions from the actual sketches post out in the inventor one. So, and that's all information that you can use too. So it's just a different way in which you call it, but. So anyways, from notes on is what I refer to as local parameters. So you just do has parameter or get parameter. Everything up would be has global parameter, get global parameter. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to go to let's see what spindle. Cycle type. I want to look up cycle type because I want to define how my spindle call is being done by the cycle type. So you can see in this one I've got drilling. The next one will be right tapping. And if I go back to the beginning, and then my first operation doesn't actually have the parameter cycle type, so I just don't have a period on that one. So you can see the drilling or right tapping on that one. Now, if I go back in here, let's just say I'm going to take this this S output, or my spindle speed output, and I'm going to start creating another if statement for this one as well. Okay, so I'm going to say if has parameter. Now, the way you do this is you have to enclose them in quotations again. I'm going to go back in here, and again I'm going to search cycle type because there's a couple different ones. you have one that's in your actual local parameters, and then you have one that's actually in the tool. So I'm going to take this one because I want to do by operation. So I'm going to just select this operation colon cycle type, copy it, and paste it in here. So if it has this parameter, okay, I want it to write block the same information, except what I'm going to do on this one is get this line in here. I'm actually going to reverse it, so I'm going to cut and paste this in front. Okay, so I've got that, and then I'm going to say else if, oh, you know what, so if it has parameter operation cycle type, and so this is where it's key to remember kind of some of the operators that I talked about earlier. So I'm doing in the same if statement, I'm actually going to have has and get both. I'm not going to assign a variable to get, but I'm going to use it still. And get parameter operation cycle type. Okay, close that one. Equals drilling. Okay. So I'm saying if it has the parameter operation cycle type and operation cycle type equals drilling, then post this out. Okay. So then I'm going to say copy and paste this because I'm using the same setup. So in my else if statement, I'm going to use the same has parameter, but in this one, I want to do it for the right tapping that I had done. Okay, so let's go into here, hit next a couple times. There it is, right tapping. Okay. Okay, and I'm just going to post it or paste it in there. So now what I'm doing is, if it has that cycle type and it equals right tapping, I'm actually going to say that I don't want it to post anything. So I'm actually just going to leave a blank line here. Okay. And then else, put that back in there. So what I did in here, I just flipped my M call with the spindle output. For the drilling, if it's right tapping, I'm posting nothing at all. And then if it's a milling, because it's not going to have the actual cycle type parameter, I'm just going to post it out like normal. Okay, and then I always check, make sure I've got, because I'm not the best at always checking syntax. So the one way I always do this, again, red line on the side to make sure it's closed in the proper spot. Okay, so we should be good there. So now what I want to do, I'm just going to post the two out. So I'm just going to post this drilling and the tap. Oh. Debugging. I know a lot of people say that you don't usually get a lot of help whenever you get errors in it. So you saw that whenever I did the post dialog, there was no user properties. I mean, something was wrong. And so we can see that I'm missing a parenthesis after a condition. So here's where you typically going to find it. So right here, 823 to 816, and then another one up here, this 814. So the 814 is probably the actual line that I have that's missing some. So let's look at this. 814, so I've got that. Okay, so I am missing that parenthesis right there. Alright, now let's save that. So that's a really good example of, even though it comes up, if you're modifying it, maybe it comes up blank like that, just go ahead and hit post, because like probably 80% of the time whenever I'm doing it, you can almost always figure out what's going on if you just look at it, whatever the errors are. And so like on this one, it gave me the exact line I needed. Anyways, okay, so let's go back over here and try this out again. Alright, so I'm still missing one. $16. Yep, I would miss that one too. Alright, now it should be good. I guess let's hope. There we go. Alright, so then drill 5, you can see that it did the spindle call and then the speed. And then on my right tapping, I actually don't have any spindle call or speed call at all. So this one, they ended up wanting that spindle information here, right above the actual can cycle call. So, basically what I would just do on that one is I could go in here and copy and paste these lines, come over to my bar on the right hand side and go to the on cycle point, and then just find right tapping. So right tapping here, and their end call on that was actually 29. Okay, so that's kind of how we can do some of those modifications using if statements to drive how the information is actually output in the code, whether you actually output anything at all, and whatnot. And so there again, like I said, the one important thing to always look at is if you ever have a question of where or what something may be or how you can call something, always put a couple toolpaths on a part and do a dump file, the dump post, and you almost always will find what you need to do that. So, this is the one thing that I use the most to kind of learn whenever I was trying to learn the post-processing side of it. Just go through and look at all these and just kind of get an understanding of how certain things are, because typically the way that these properties are called out in here are parameters. Those are also parameters that you can use inside HSM to actually control how things are processed inside of a toolpath. Because if I'm trying to look at my tool diameter, let's just find tool diameter. No, it's right there. This is how I would put the tool diameter in an expression as well. So there's a lot of flow between the two, because if you know what a perimeter is inside of HSM and you do the dump file, you can type it in the control find, and probably 9 times out of 10 you'll find it almost right off the bat, because it's used in the same way. They're similar. So that's just some of the stuff on there. The dump files are my main thing on being able to actually get information and get it pretty quick. And there again, just using the if statements and all that. And if you ever wonder how something works, I always just test it. So if I go back into here, I am a firm believer on not rewriting everything. I would always find something that is somewhat similar to like what you're looking for, maybe how you want something to look conditionally wise, so like your if statement. Let's see, if I find here. Yeah. There we go. Oh, variable. That's what I was going to do too. Yeah. Anyway, so if you don't want to try to write something from scratch, find a statement or a write block or something that's similar to kind of how you're wanting it to post, because more than likely there's something in there that can just be used and modified or tweaked a little bit. But one thing I wanted to do is creating the variable. So right here, you see this var code. So here I'm actually creating a variable and then assigning the variable the name of the code equals, and then whatever I want code to equal. So it's work offset minus 26 plus 20. If there is, so I'm trying to think of a good example. Hang on a second. I put it in here. I thought I did. Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay. So let's go back up to tool call. Okay, so so we did this. Let's say we switched it up a little bit. I'm just going to go below this and do a new one. Okay, so here I'm going to do if. I'm just going to copy this as that cycle type. Okay. Open that up. All right, then I'm going to say get when create a variable of C type, get parameter okay. So now I'm telling it to define a variable called C type, and then I want that C type to equal the parameter value of operation cycle type. And then I'm going to do a write log, or comment actually, of C type. So on that, since it's a variable, all I have to do is put in the variable name in here, and it would post out as that. So now you can see it posts the comment line out, right tapping, and drilling. So that's just some of the ways that you can kind of use the parameters to define how information is going to be output. Maybe even use them to output the information in the code that maybe the user is wanting, seen in the program, or even creating multiple comment lines that they may input values that would go at the header of it, like this. So that's just kind of some of the examples of how we can do that using user properties or just the properties or parameters that are already built into HSM or HSM Works Fusion itself. All right. All right. So, um, yes, if there's any questions, let's go ahead and kind of
Awesome.
window.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think that anybody can complain about the amount of knowledge shared here. So we're definitely grateful for that. I hope that everybody has a notepad and a pen that is quickly getting filled up here. So let's open it up for any questions. Is there anybody who have any questions as regard to, what Matt covered here, and also, of course, this past week, well, you've been sitting, and at the evening drinking a beer, anything that kind of like came up to your mind about what you saw last week? Type quicker, guys. I'm just joking. Um, no, I thought that this was really. I mean, this is kind of like the meat and the potatoes, right? When it comes to post processing, getting these comments, and that really where it can take a post from just being, a bunch of code to actually something I think really useful. So
Yeah, hopefully that.
I thought that was excellent. Cool. All right, there's no questions from the audience, so that's good. That means that you pretty much covered everything that anybody could think of. So that's awesome. As you guys, like I said in the beginning, this is a series. So you have the last week's recording up on A360, and you will have this week's recording will go up on A360. Definitely use this as a reference. And then next week, next Thursday will be the last one in this series. Now, depending on your guys' feedback, we might, we'll be happy to extend this out if we need to. But we just thought to start out with like a um, three section would be a good start. The number 3 is always a good number. So definitely, if you have any questions, you are definitely more than welcome to email Matt or myself for that matter. And unless somebody have anything to add, then we will close this session down, give you about 11 minutes back of your hour, and then we're looking forward to next Thursday, where Matt will kind of like round out this series. So thank you so much, Matt. Great job, and we'll see you in a week.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Have a good weekend.